Welcome to the Building Code. I'm Zach Matovich.
And I'm Charley Burtwhistle.
You're looking at me like that intro was a little too energetic.
That intro, that was one of your weakest intros of all time, I think.
Oh, this guy wants to handle the intros.
No. You let me do that one, then you never let me do anymore. But it is good to be back in the studio with my favorite people. Beautiful Friday afternoon. Zach, how are you doing?
Good, man. Hey, we're about to hit the weekend. You know, it's a beautiful day outside. Hard to complain.
Absolutely. And the guest that we have today, Zach and I have heard a ton about him. He was at the last Buildertrend University, and he left kind of as a local legend.
Yeah. Shout out to the production crew.
They find the absolute best people of all of our 20, 30,000 customers.
Smoozing it up with the customers down at Blackstone in Omaha. If you don't know about it, you should.
You got to check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Come to BTU.
Yeah, buildertrend.com.
Should we dangle that carrot? Come to BTU. End up on the pod.
Yeah, it has worked. It has worked multiple times for sure. Okay, Zach, tell our listeners out there who we have on today.
Yeah, so Tom is out in Richmond, Virginia. He's got a ton of experience in construction, so I'm really excited to get him on here and talk a little bit about his business, how he uses Buildertrend, talk about his life and kind of what brought him into construction. It's going to be really cool.
Absolutely.
Tom, welcome to the Building Code. We're obviously super excited to have you here. You were just in Omaha for BTU not that long ago. For our listeners, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and how you got started in construction, and why not talk about BTU?
Sure. So real quickly, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Of course.
Love the background and the Buildertrend, just everything I've learned about you guys. And would tell you that I got my start in construction in college, actually. I used to work in a grocery store in the summer times, and I started studying civil engineering and concrete and studying all this stuff. And I thought to myself, I better get some experience doing it. So I went to a general contractor that was local in Virginia and got a job. And it was one of those, like, when you start a job in a restaurant, you're like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow, bring you'll have an apron or something, but you're starting tomorrow. Well, a construction company is different. It's like, well, I got to find something to put you on. Yeah, well, I got to put you on something, right?
Yeah.
So I got to pay for you. And I was thinking, it's like, well, can't you put me on a job tomorrow? Nope, I've got to. So the guy actually was bidding a job, and my first job was a law office, and I had to do this TI work. And what was neat was my first superintendent I worked for was one of these crafty guys that could hang doors, set tile, just did everything, right? Worked with his hands. And it was funny, he was big, like, so overweight. And you saw this guy like, how in the world does he do all this stuff? And he did. I mean, he just was one of these guys, he just figured out, even as fat as he was, he could get things done. And then he had a skinny guy that was his helper. He did a lot of good stuff. And his name was Tracy. And that guy is probably 5 years older with me. And remember, I'm like 19. This guy is 23 with 4 kids.
Not wasting any time.
Yeah, hey, he knew what he wanted.
I'm making $5.50 an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
I was looking at Tracy. It's like, how do you make it work? And he says, I'll show you. And he showed me the beauty of side jobs. And,
I thought you'd be like, and then I had 6 kids by 23.
Yeah, that's right. I would make more on a Sunday than I did all week working at $5.50 an hour.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I learned quickly through construction that I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to understand how to manage it.
Yeah.
Right? And so I finished up college, and I did this through graduation. I actually graduated and worked again until I started my real job all summer with a graduation degree for $5.50 an hour digging ditches, right? Like I'd already graduated and everything, had my degree, my diploma and everything. And the guys were laughing. We got a college graduate digging ditches here. This is awesome. Right. But my first job was with Turner Construction Company out of New York City. And I was at a Ritz-Carlton hotel. And I was a field engineer, and right out the gate, you go out there and I'm laying it out with my surveying tools and all this stuff and working with people. And what I found was you're trying to find tools to coordinate your work. And back then we had fax machines, right? You didn't have email, you didn't have digital cameras and YouTube videos to look at to teach you how to do something. And so you had to really pull on people that were experts, and they would teach you the stuff, right? And I found it's kind of the honey vinegar kind of thing. I could be a jerk and say, well, I'm the boss, everybody else, I'm the hammer, everybody else is a nail.
Yeah.
But what I found was, I was more the humble side. And I still do this today. I go to a permit office and say, hey, I'm trying to do a building permit for this job. And what do I need to do? And I actually sit down with the reviewer, and they actually look at things and say, all right, Tom, you need this, that, versus a typical person walks in and says, "This is what you got. This is what you asked for. Here's your check. Give me my permit." It's like, no, I go the other way around. How do you give me the permit? And then I find doing that over time, I've developed a lot of relationships with these folks that I'm almost like an expediter now, because they know I'm going to do what they need to get done, right? And I do the same thing with my subs, is I actually work for my vendors. And that's what Buildertrend was able to help me do. And just kind of progressing through the years, just to tell you my background, so for the listeners, is that, I did a Ritz-Carlton, and I went into Fisher Island down in Miami, worked on a bunch of condominiums down there. All these projects were multi-million-dollar jobs, very fast track, worked 7 days a week oftentimes. And that's just what you did back then. There was no balance, right? You had to get a job done. We got the Ritz-Carlton Hotel because we told them we could build it in 18 months, right? 18 months, 450-room hotel, and there's nothing there. And all of a sudden I have a hotel. And, I'm driving these guys to the airport because I was a low kid on the totem pole. So, the executives had busy go golfing and stuff. They said, "Tom, take the rich people back." So I had a half an hour in the car to talk to these guys about, hey, what do you do? And so I started learning what owners were like. And so I started trying to take an owner's attitude with construction when I'm being a contractor. Like, what would an owner do almost, right? And so I've carried that throughout my whole career. And then, progressing from there, I went to Miami, then I went to Cincinnati. And in Cincinnati is where I got my chops. That's where I learned how to estimate, build subcontractor relationships. My boss in estimating told me I had to take a vendor out to lunch once a week. And he said, "I'll approve the expense report. You buy lunch. They're not buying you lunch because they're teaching you something." And I found when I did that, they really opened up because I wasn't expecting something from them. And I used to tell them that. I said, "Listen, when you bid a job to me, it's double secret. I'm not telling somebody else what you did." And then I also went with this attitude of, kind of like proprietary knowledge. My job as an estimator, I looked at as, when you look at these set of plans, you're finding the booby traps that could hurt these guys. And you need to tell them about the booby traps, right? And then what I found with them coming back, they might come back to me and say, "Hey, Tom, I saw these other two traps. Did you see that? And by the way, I figured them out. And here's the thing I'm going to do to address it. And I think this is what's going to help me get the job." I'd say, "That's awesome." And I'd lock that in, put that in my qualifications and all that kind of jazz. And if they were the low bidder, that's what I used as my, stuff and all that jazz. But I did not call this competition and say, "Hey, did you see those other two boobies?" You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't. And because of that relationship, what I found is I got guys that I can pretty much call up on a phone call and they'll do a job for me. And they'll just take care of it. They'll get it done. And it's the right price. And it'll stand up, right? And so that's what I've kind of developed at Cincinnati. And my last job there was a bingo stadium. And we were pouring 250 yards of concrete a day. I had meetings with Baker Concrete at 5:30 in the morning and meet all the way up to 6:30 in the afternoon. Just different kind of things going on, job site stuff going. But something of that magnitude, you just saw these decisions and, you just had to work with smart people, and all that. So that's what I, did. And then I went to a smaller company, moved to Richmond once we had our kid. And my son George now is 20 something, 20. Yeah, he's 20 in college. And my daughter just started Virginia Tech. And so I've got two kids now in college, and now it's back to me and my wife again. I'm kind of laughing. I had a business for a while doing construction company. I did remodels, and all my jobs, architects brought to work to me because I took care of them. And what I mean by taking care of the architects was I wasn't trying to show them how dumb they were. And I remember I had a superintendent come to me one time, all proud. He said, "Hey, Tom, man, I just went to the owner and showed him how dumb this architect is." I said, "Do you know what you just did?" He said, "What?" And I said, "You just got us fired." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Because when you call the architect a dum-dum, you're telling the owner he's a dum-dum. Because oftentimes he's the first, he's hired the architect. And then the architect had to pick a contractor to do the work, which happened to be us on this job. And now you're showing, that's not a good way to play ball here." And so I've started coaching my teams as I got into more management, the project management side, that look, it's our job to not make these guys look good, but help the job go well. And then I've even been taught by some guys that a job is often like a patient. And what does the job need? Right. And then so if you look at projects this way, you kind of come back and say, well, that's interesting. It's not Tom Henning wants this. It's what the job needs. It becomes impersonal. So that way the clients don't get mad. It's just like, look, it's what the job needs. I don't want this. It just needs to have happen. And so when I started my business and used Buildertrend, I used to tell residents that I'm interviewing with, I'd say, look, the biggest surprise is no surprise. And these guys would look at me like, what are you talking about? I said, construction is Murphy, okay? And you're going to be surprised. And, it's almost a weird turnaround. But I've found that my clients, it's almost like an Easter egg hunt. And they get all excited and they go, Tom, here's the surprise. And it's going to cost them money, but they're not mad because I told them this could potentially happen.
Right.
That I would be surprised if we went through your entire remodel and nothing went, everything went as planned.
Yeah.
That would be just amazing. Right. And we all talk about this in our industry, right? Like that's got to happen. Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, getting back to, the experience, what I've found in life is that if you take the time to show people that you care and that you genuinely really want to do their job and you're compassionate about what you do and you have good folks working for you, it's just a fun day. So
I love that. That's really great insight.
Yeah.
And
So that kind of just wraps me up a little bit, but that's kind of how I got to where I'm at now, working as a client.
yeah.
The one thing we have to touch on before we go any further in this interview, and Zach knows what I'm going to say.
Exactly what he's going to say.
Zach is the biggest Cincinnati Bengals fan.
Yeah, like you poured the
you
concrete.
and me both, baby.
Yeah, I was like, where should we, like, what do I need to know about Paul Brown Stadium? Like, how do I get in? How do I meet Joe Burrow?
Are there any secret tunnels that you laid out just for VIP
I was so
entrance?
excited when Joe Burrow was from that area.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you knew he was coming back to the Midwest.
Right.
And was going to play for them. And do you know, they were so close for the Super Bowl.
I was there.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a great memory, and then it was the worst memory, Tom.
Right. It's like the best, worst, right? But yeah, Bengals fan, big time.
Love it.
In fact, for you,
First Who Day on the
Who
pod.
Day.
There we go.
Here we go.
We're losing all our
Oh,
listeners
wow.
right now. I love it.
That's the baby right there, man.
So you moved to Virginia, though. You lived in Cincinnati for a while.
when,
Now
when
you're
I
in
had my
Virginia?
son, my folks lived in Roanoke. I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia.
Ah, okay.
And my wife is an Army brat, and her dad retired up in Woodbridge and was government contractor kind of guy. So he lived up in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
So Richmond was kind of this town that we said, hey, it's close to a lot of things, right? Like the beach, Charlottesville. My wife went to UVA. I went to VMI, which is in the news lately with a lot of crap going on right now. That's crazy. But what I'm saying is, but what all this did for me was, getting back to Virginia is where I grew up. It's kind of like you guys being in the Midwest. It's what you know.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you guys up there, being a Husker or, I mean, talking to Nick, who's one of my trainers, he says, I don't travel much, Tom.
Yeah.
So to me, where you kind of think this country was founded in Virginia, Jamestown and Williamsburg, I'm trying to say that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we take that for granted, right? Like it's just a couple hours away, right? So, you with me? Like even the Civil War was fought here.
Yeah, right, for sure.
Weird stuff, right? Where you guys are, it's like the Great Discovery and the hardworking people. My big affection. My dad used to say all the time, if you don't like the farmers, just don't fuss with your mouth full.
Yeah.
You're not hungry, right? That's right. Well, that's because these guys are taking care of you. They're the ones growing the cattle or the corn, and they're the bread. They was the breadbasket of America, right? You're taking care of what everybody has, right? And I think people forget that till they get out there and see it. And then also, I think you show us how big the country is. I mean, it's a massive country. When I lived in the Midwest, everything was hours. Is that how you guys are? Like I'm 2 hours away, or
Yeah.
It wasn't miles, right? It was
Yeah.
how long does it actually take to get there? Like Indianapolis was 2 hours away, Columbus an hour and a half, that kind of stuff from Cincinnati.
Yeah, ours is like Kansas City, 3.5.
Yeah, Denver,
Chicago,
Right, so,
8.
your low end is 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
We can go to Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yeah, about 4.5, 5. So then, for our listeners out there, Tom, you kind of talked about your past experience and just an absolutely very, very decorated resume for sure. Tell us a little bit about where you're at now and kind of the recent shift that you've made.
All right, so my kids were getting older. My son was a really good track and cross country runner. In fact, top 5% of the state. And I wanted to be there for him and see his events and do that. And this job came up to where they needed at the time a project manager to manage a project for a retirement community. And this place is Westminster Canterbury Richmond, and it was putting a whole new tower look. I was going to put a whole new top of a tower, mezzanine, everything in place of an existing 1974 tower. So, modernizing this thing, cutting off the roof, putting on some new things. And by the way, the residents are living right below me, right? So it's like a hotel that's still open, but I'm building on top of you, right? And we had the second wettest year in history when I did that job.
Wow.
So
great timing.
Tons of roof leaks, tons of water issues, damage, and all that kind of stuff. And I would come here sometimes 2 a.m. to meet with the residents and say, "Hey, Miss Smith, I'm so sorry," and put in these little pig things and divert the water to a trash can, and they're moving to the other bedroom to sleep because they can't sleep in the bedroom because there's water dripping over the bed and all that jazz. So just a nightmare, right? And kind of goes back to the care. The difference is I'm the owner and not the contractor. So having been a contractor, I can kind of talk conversely with the contractor, say this is what we need to do this, and then being the owner, I had my management people like my mechanics and all that. But we went through this whole job, got it done. Residents super happy, love it. But I became almost like family, to where they know me by name. I know their kids, they know my kids. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy, right? But I was able, with this balance, it's pretty much a banker's job, right? I come in about 8:30. And I can leave at 5 o'clock, whatever. And, that's I don't work weekends, that kind of stuff, which for construction, right? That's crazy.
Unheard of.
We just had a guest tell us, he's like, I never have a day off. So the fact that you had a weekend, right? Tom, living the dream.
And when I have my business, okay, and I'm going to tell all these contractors out there, you need to do this for balance, okay? Or you get the stink eye from the wife, but is that from 6 to 8, I would tell my clients my phone is off. And they go, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm going to cook dinner." At the time, the way I worked it with my wife was, because construction had to be on the job so early, I was never there to get them off to school or get them ready or anything. So I said, I made a deal with my wife, Betsy. I said, "Look, I'll put the kids to bed every night.
Right.
I will tuck them in. I'll read them books every night, 8 o'clock. So around 8:30, and I actually did this. I'd tuck the kids in bed, get back in the car, and go to Miss Smith's house.
Wow.
To go do an estimate. And oftentimes they wanted that because they, like us, were dads and moms. And that was the only time they could meet with us, because they were both home from work. The kids were in bed if they had little ones, or the teenage, whatever it was, they had the time to focus with me. So you almost have to shift your paradigm of business development a little bit, right? And then, like you said, you're always working. I was at the beach doing estimates, all that kind of jazz. And so when I came to the owner side, as they used to say, the dark side, what I did was I appreciated what they did, and I made sure I gave my guys the grace and the time to get it to me when they can. I was not this, and I'm not to this day, I need this tomorrow at 5. Or, what I'm saying? Like, just, when can you, I usually put it in your court and say, when can you get it to me? And they say, I can get it to you next Tuesday. That's perfect. That's fine. And then that way they, but then my favorite thing as a superintendent, right, is guess what today is? Tomorrow. when the sub says I'll get to it tomorrow, and
Yeah.
you kind of roll up to them, and
That's that may have to be the t-shirt idea for this episode. Is every episode I like to take the best thing someone says and pitch it to our producers to put on a t-shirt and sell as merch. So
I'm in.
That's my pitch.
I'm
for
in, and
this
I want
one.
the first one extra large, please.
There you go. Guess what today is? Tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd like to point out we've had 0 t-shirts made, so they don't land. But
Yeah, we're waiting for
one
the
of
right
these
one.
days. One of these days, the ladies will come through for us.
Well, that's in what I've learned with all my wisdom guys, is that if you are humble enough to say, look, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and that's what you find as you get older, is you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. I want the smart guys doing the work. I'm trying to say, what I want people to look at me as being smart on is I got the right guys doing the work. That's where you're smart, and I think that only comes with experience, and it also comes with just good, people skills where you're working good with folks, that kind of jazz.
Yeah, that's solid wisdom. I mean, it shows experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
there probably was maybe a time, I know I can be pretty confident in my abilities, right? And like as I've gotten older, I've tried to be like, well, I find someone who can do it better. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
There's a lot.
I grew up in the 80s. You had, what was that song, Like a Rock by Bob Seger, right? You thought you're invincible.
We're not from the 80s, so we might not know.
But if you play that song Like a Rock,
Yeah.
You're coming out of college like, I'm a stud muffin. Nobody knows more than I do. And everybody just shut up and sit down because I'm getting ready to show you what to do here.
Right.
And you quickly get humbled. You know what I'm saying? That's what I love about construction. It shows you real quick how much you do or don't know about what's going on.
Yeah, and I feel like there's like a pride aspect to that too, like especially growing out a team or building a company or something, like hiring people that are better than you at your job. Comes with a lot of like, you kind of have to take a step down from your pedestal and admit like, hey, if I want my team to grow or my company to grow, I need to be the second smartest, then third smartest, then fourth smartest, and fifth smartest person on the team.
I mean, I had great mentors. If you look at my resume history, I worked at DPR, for instance. Okay, I met the Doug, Peter, and Ron of DPR.
Wow.
Been to California. Doug Woods took me aside one time and said, "You're too entrepreneurial to be working for a company. You should start your own company, Tom."
That's a fun way to get fired. No, I'm just kidding.
To your point, I was like, "Or so you softly?
Yeah, you
what do they call it? The quiet firing right now?" No, but what he was saying, and I said, but I told Doug, I kind of threw it back at him. I said, "Doug, why do you think I'm working here?" And he says, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Because you teach us to be entrepreneurial. You're not telling me what to do. There's not a title on my business card. It's what the client thinks I am."
Yeah.
I
love that.
Awesome.
I'm going to start using that.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, Doug Woods, he actually had business cards, and he's the founder. See, I mean, he could be I'm the D of DP&R, right?
Right.
It just says Doug Woods.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Now he's passed away. He's passed, I think he died about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Sad. I mean, but he was the kind of boss he was. He put his office by the copier because he wanted to hear what's going on.
You're right.
Just, how people, they bleeping so-and-so just wanted another fact. You know what I'm saying? And, hey, what's up, John?
Hey, what was that?
John would tell him what's going on, and then he's got his ear to the ground,
Yeah, I love that move.
But their attitude and was, that's how you got to go forth and conquer. So that's kind of how I do it. But anyway.
Yeah, I love the. I want to touch a little bit more on the topic of ear to the ground, hearing what other people are saying. We mentioned at the beginning that you were just out at Buildertrend University in Omaha not that long ago. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like? Obviously, you get to meet a lot of other builders, a lot of other remodelers, people that use Buildertrend, and kind of talk and communicate as an organization of peers, kind of across the country. How was your experience?
So it was neat to kind of talk to other folks to see, how do you use it, or what modules do you use, that kind of stuff. And, as long as I've been using this program, which I've been using it, when I had my old company, I think it's like since 2012. I got to look back at my subscriptions. You guys can probably tell me, but you guys did my website for me, the whole 9 yards, man, back then. And when I came over to here and started doing what I was doing, I quickly saw this is what I needed to use to manage all the remodels we do. And we do about 60 remodels a year.
Oh, wow.
And then we actually do selections and all that kind of stuff. And then we got this huge expansion, this $200 million expansion we're doing, and we're adding 118 new units. So I remember talking to Nick, and then Carolyn Kramer actually trained me, but on selections. So I bought the selections module. You had to upgrade to the next level of Buildertrend involvement there. And Carolyn helped me get it all set up. We got it in place, and we've now completed the selections of 47 of the 118 units with this program. Phenomenal.
Wow.
Right? And it's and these residents, by the way, it's like an hour and a half to 2 hour meeting. And we've been meeting with 3 to 4 residents a week, and we told the big company that's doing this whole expansion, we'll have all these selections to you by January 1. All right, so we've actually created the and the Buildertrend thing spits out a report and says, here are all the selections. And we've put some language in there saying that, by the way, any upgrades are non-refundable. So if these people back out later and say, that $9,000 bidet I bought, you're not getting your money back. It's going in the remodel, right? Or the wood floor upgrades you picked and all that kind of stuff. And we got folks that picked up to, in some cases, 50-some thousand upgrades, whatever it might be. But the reason for that is to help the contractor get the job done, and also get a commitment from the residents. Now, it's kind of easy to say that. It's kind of like going to Disney saying, hey, look, I'm going to tell you it's a non-refundable ticket. That you're going to say, fine, I'm going to Disney. I don't want to not go to Disney. And that's kind of how this place is. And we have almost over 1,000 person waiting list here.
Really?
Right? Yes.
Wow.
So we don't have, we're blessed in that we're a brand that people want to be here. Okay. And it's because of the quality of care, the quality of people that we have here, and the quality of just everything about this place is what brought me here on the client side. And they've allowed me to really be almost like run this like a contracting business. They say, Tom, do your job. And so that's what I do. I bid all my remodels out. I have 3, bidders for almost every division. We have pre-bid meetings at these apartments. They walk the job with our sales team. Sales team tells us what's going on. We do that with Zoom even. So the guys that can't make the meeting, they can log into, it's actually Microsoft Teams is what we use, but they can come into the Teams call. We do that. And I have a schedule on Buildertrend. So I actually use the Buildertrend. I actually have a Westminster Canterbury renovation tab job that everybody has access to. And you pop that open and it has a schedule in there of all my bids, when they're due, and what apartments they are, and what time the pre-bids are, and all that jazz.
Yeah.
So going to Buildertrend University, though, I learned that, hey, Tom, not only can you do that, but you can actually, have them put the bids in. So, it's just, I think the thing with Buildertrend that I tell anybody that's new to it is don't try to drink all the ocean at one time.
Right.
Just take little pieces and get good at it. Right. And so where I started with it was the daily reports. I wanted my guys to just do daily reports, take pictures, upload them. Just tell me what's going on, get it where the client's good with it. And then I went to schedule. All right, let's start putting our schedule together. Is this something we can publish now? Do we want the client to see that? Is that something you think we want to do a baseline schedule? You guys ready to do that? And we're at the point now, we got baseline schedules, and I've taken jobs now where we used to take 14 weeks. We're given the credo to do it in 11 weeks. Okay, we do that. Wow. Now we got it to 9 weeks.
Really?
And it's just because of, I truly believe it's the Buildertrend organization pieces, that I'm using. It helps my guys just stay dialed in. The schedule feature alone is phenomenal. You just pop guys, when you update stuff and they're tied into the schedule, the plumber gets an update that, hey, we didn't pass an inspection, so you're going to have to come back tomorrow. So, it's not going to get done today or whatever it might be. It's phenomenal. You don't have to call anybody. To-do lists. I use that all the time when I'm doing, walking around with my sales team and they say, hey, Tom, this grout needs to be fixed. I swear to God, I'm getting phone calls while I'm walking with them because they got popped and said, hey, Tom, I saw that. I just came across my thing. Can you tell me what I said? And the sales team loves it because they see I'm actually taking care of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about Buildertrend. It's just like, I got this.
Yeah, you have to be making Zach's trainer heart very, very happy.
I messaged Caroline while you were talking about the shout out, and she said to say hello.
Oh, it's awesome! She's great, and to tell you, she got at one point she had to help me with something, and she couldn't make a meeting, and she had somebody pinch hit for me because I was working on something, and that person, I'm telling you, everybody I've talked to or worked with the Buildertrend, you're dialed in. You know what to do. I remember calling in one time the 1-800 number because I was upset about something, and they just talked me off a cliff. Tom, you're right. This is what we got to do. And they just kind of calm you down. And I think a lot of it is you guys have an awesome product, and I just think it's just the tweaks is what I run into. So now I get with my teams and say, what can we do better with Buildertrend, or what would you like that to be? And then you try to do that, where you do the suggestions, pop stuff in there and send that into the team and all that. But great product.
Yeah. I mean, our product team, we have a few people from product on the podcast every now and then. And the recurring theme constantly is we want to do what's best for our customer, and we can't do that unless they tell us. And it's funny, after hearing that from them so often, now I'm the type of person that when I get an email or I get a pop-up in another product that tells you to leave feedback, I do it now. I used to always be like, oh, this is annoying, but I'm like, wait.
Yeah, block it, right?
Yeah.
I'm
like, wait, if I want it to be better, I have to tell them. And then as far as our CS team goes, I hate to give Zach too much credit, but he is one of the senior managers on the CS floor. So he's out there, training people and coaching people and driving the the there. So we have an incredible CS team, and Zach plays a part.
People like Caroline deserve all the credit. I don't do anything.
Yeah, I don't like complimenting.
Yeah,
Zach
don't let
too
Charley
often.
talk nice about me.
Well, and I guess her counterpart, Nick, was the one that upsold me to the selections program. He said, Tom, you need this if that's what you need to do. And that's where I think you guys bring a lot of value to a client like me, that, hey, it's going to cost a little more, but it's worth it if this is what you want to do with it. And then now that I've got it in place and we're using it, it's like discovering fire, right? The people are like, I can't work without it. Right. And it is the win-win. Right. And that's kind of what you're trying to generate is a brand that it's like QuickBooks. Right. You got to find an accounting software you want to use. And then that is what you use. I remember when I hired Paychecks, I said, this is how you get fired. And they said, what do you mean? I said, you missed payday.
Right.
And they said, what are you talking about? I said, you need to tell me how much I got to have in the bank, what my draw needs to be, all that jazz. But my guys get paid on the 1st and the 15th of every month. Okay. Like clockwork. I don't care what jobs I got going on, whatever it is, they get paid. All right. And most of my folks were salary. I didn't have like self-performance guys that were, working overtime. I just wasn't that big yet. I never really wanted to get like that because that's just painful. Now there are a bunch of guys that do a lot of self-perform work, and I have hats off to you, man. It's wonderful, but it's tough to keep that 40 hours in, right? I mean, I bet you talk to a bunch of contractors, that's their biggest challenge, right? Is keeping that guy busy for the week. You know what I'm saying? And truly doing work. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's it's a skill, right? You got to find the right jobs, the right clients, the right customers, and just make sure they have things in place for you. But yeah, to that end, I used Paychecks, for instance, and I never missed a payday.
There you go.
And that was one of my goals, right? And then, but going back to the dad side, that's what my son told me when I came over to here, and I've been here almost 5 years as he's graduating down in college. He said, you never missed a track meet. You never missed a cross-country meet, and I was just like, I got all choked up running with him, and he has to slow down to run with Dad because I can't run his 6-7 minute mile pace. You know what I'm saying? I'm like an 8-minute kind of guy. but I think he's seeing what it means to be a dad. And I think Buildertrend, you're kind of a parent with that. I think the Buildertrend piece this is how you take care of the family. And so that's kind of how I look at this program is having people log in, look at things. I mean, I sold a bunch of work that way. Just log on my website and they would see the projects you've done. And oh my God, yeah, I love that kitchen or, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a great product and just leveraging, how it can just take care of things. And to put this in perspective, I've got to manage these 118 apartments that are coming up, and the big contract is like, Tom, all these apartments are different. They're not the same like a hotel. And I said, that's right. And they said, well, we don't know how we're going to manage that. I said, you don't have to worry about it. I got it. Because I have Buildertrend.
Yeah.
It was just funny. It was like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
They said, what about the specifications? What about correcting? You don't need to correct the drawings. I got the selection sheet right here. That'll be our spec. Wait a minute, this is signed by the client. They picked
Yeah.
everything. They tell you which wall, the south wall needs to be painted, the accent color, all that. We don't need to draw that crap. It's right here. Why do it twice? And this is kind of what I'm trying to teach that paradigm is we get into this school of, man, the drawings have got to reflect what, no, not necessarily. That's the beauty of construction. It's kind of a work of art.
A little fluid.
Yeah. You know, when a person's doing a remodel, you know, and this was another thing I learned recently, and I didn't know this till I got to the client side. When you work in the construction industry, I say everybody, most people understand plans. They understand what they're looking at, right? When you come to this side where I'm working with buyers and, you know, soft, you know, social workers and, you know, nurses and all this kind of jazz, these folks can't see what we see on a set of plans. You know, I learned that it's like 85% of the population do not understand like a Lego 3D. You know, they couldn't look at something and build it. You know, it's a spatial thing.
Right.
And I didn't see that till I came to the owner's side. Because, you know, if you're talking with guys that are doing it for a living, it's almost you can fake it till you make it if you don't really know what you're doing, because you got enough people around you to say, yeah, that's where the door is going to be and all that kind of stuff. And now with this, you know, the VDC stuff that's out there, I mean, you can put these glasses on and, you know, show them, hey, this is your kitchen. It's pretty amazing. And, you know, I went to a conference in Chicago this year, and I was one of the hosts, the MCs for a day. And the reason they wanted me as a host is because I'm a client and can call BS to something. You know, somebody, oh, this way. No, it's not. No,
right.
And the other thing I learned is that the client oftentimes, and I would ask your other contractors to ask their clients this, how long have you been talking about this project? I would be surprised if it's less than a year. Right.
Right.
You know, most jobs, it might be years. Right. You know, like I remember I did somebody's bathroom and they said, we've been talking about this for 20 years.
Really? Hey, better late than never, I guess.
Yeah. So, and I kind of joked with him. His name was Bob, and his name Bob Gunn. I said, Bob, I don't know what to say. This is my first bathroom remodel. He says, well, it better be right, because I've been wanting to do this for 20 years and I'm hiring you to do it. And I remember that's when I started figuring out, okay, I got to get the right people to do this work, you know, and it just kind of stemmed from there.
Do you have your clients help with the selections process? Obviously you're working with a little older population, and are you introducing the Buildertrend? I'm just curious. Yeah.
So what the threshold we have not crossed, just being honest engine with Buildertrend, is my sales team is still worried about the getting them to be able to log in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we talked about this at BTU was, hey, if you could get it to where I could have like 5 people
share
that, you know, and what I'm getting at is the kids.
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of them are the ones that are tech savvy. I mean, I'm kind of laughing. I mean, mom's almost got a flip phone here. You know, I'm trying to say, I'm serious, man. It's like a razor.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, you know, they can.
Classic, though.
Yeah, those are sweet.
You know what I'm saying? They don't have an iPhone, and you give them a tablet, and they're like, it's like handing them keys to a jet engine. They're like, what's that? You know?
Yeah.
So, but they're coming around.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we're putting in applications, and again, the Buildertrend, you know, training, and we actually have production here. We actually have a TV station, right? And training videos.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And so I've got a guy that can record me using Buildertrend and say, hey, resident, this is what it's like to use Buildertrend.
Oh, nice.
Right.
That's
and
awesome.
They know Tom Henning. And, you know what I'm saying?
That's
I'm
cool. Yeah.
showing you how to use it versus the Buildertrend app that could show you. And by the way, all those training videos are top gun. You know, it's way to go. But what I'm saying is we're able to take that and kind of curtail it for our team. So I think it's around the corner, because what I'm trying to show them, and I told them what I brought back from the classes, is how much time it saves. So you guys got to tell me, what is your findings of when the resident's able to log in? How much time does that save a week? Wasn't it like, I heard 20 hours, but I can't remember. It was something like that.
Charlie's a numbers guy. You've done
Yeah, I mean,
it
work varies case by case, but I'd say 20 hours is a pretty solid average there.
I mean, when you think about making a phone call, calling them back, you know what I'm trying to say, having to get to the drawings and then explain it to them, talk to them about, oh, you know what I'm talking about? Oh, let's get online, let's look at it together. Yeah. When you figure out, it's easily.
Well, it's just the little things, right? The little things here and there. You're not going to chunk out 20 hour, a whole 8 hour day, right? And you're like, well, I replace that day, right? But it's 5 minutes here, it's 5 minutes there. It's half an hour over there, and then
or even if it's 20 hours a month, you
Right.
can't tell me half week's worth of productivity is saved.
yeah,
Right?
100%.
Letting them log in, done.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think, being an entrepreneur, I learned this too. You're lazy, right? Just like, I don't have to do everything, right? So
That's efficiency, not laziness.
It's not necessarily being lazy, but it's like doing payroll, right? I could do payroll. I certainly could, but I'd rather have paychecks do it because they'll get it right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, if the IRS is looking for form number XYZ, it's done. They've got all the forms. And what I like about it, it's almost like an arm's reach that it's like, I'm not messing around with the money. You know what I'm trying to say? It's, I got to pay these guys.
Yeah.
And let's make sure I pay them right. Let's make sure the Social Security, workman's comp, all that jazz is squared away, right? We're not playing any funny business there. Let's, what do I need to do? And I was big on that. And I would recommend any contractor that way. Don't, actually had an accountant when I started my business. He says 2 ways to play: above the table or below. But you can't be both. And he was serious. I mean, he said you can't play both ways.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to the VMI honor code, right? Lie, cheat, or steal, right? So you have to carry yourself, kind of in a way that you say, look, I'm running a business and there are business things I got to do, and you run the business, and you take care of your people, and I think that's a secret sauce of success to any contractor out there. And then also to a client, I can see the contractors that actually take care of the people and the ones that don't. And the ones that don't aren't on my campus. Right. I just don't want those guys. I want the guys that they're well paid, they're paid a fair wage, what I'm saying? But I'm paying for the brains. I'm paying for good people.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, taking care of your people, I think that's kind of a fantastic note to end on. We're running really, really close on time here, so I want to wrap things up. But I heard you say that. I'm like, oh, that's the perfect note to end the episode on, because I feel like that's everything that you kind of talked about from start to finish of your journey, and where you're at now is take care of your people and do what's right, and kind of the rest will take care of itself. So, Tom, thank you very, very much for coming on this episode of the Building Code. I feel like we could talk for another hour or so. If it wasn't 4:30 on a Friday, we might.
Hey, well, anytime, I'm always up for a topic. If you want to have even a group topic, like where I'm a panel of guys or gals.
That would be pretty cool. An idea.
You never know. I have some things cooking on my end.
But anything else you might have questions on, or hey, Tom, what do you talk about estimating? I mean, you look at my resume, you see the background. I would love to help. Big jobs, small jobs, what's the difference? That kind of stuff. But I think a lot of it is just take care of it. And I appreciate you guys. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.
All right, Charlie. We just had Tom Henning out on Building Code. As always, what'd you think?
Tom was very, very, very insightful. I get why when he came to BTU, as many people as they did talked about him and how great he was to talk to. I love having builders like him on the podcast. I actually feel like Tom was one of the first people we've had in a while who has a construction background. I feel like most of the people we talked to was like, oh, I was an accountant before this, or oh, I was a teacher before this, or oh, one of my friends started this business, I joined him. Tom, he sent us over his resume before the interview just so we could kind of see like what experience he had and talk through topics and things like that. I mean, he's worked at like 10 different companies, owned a couple, like he's been in the business forever. So to hear him talk about all the different things he's learned, things he's seen, going from having to go and like fax over stuff to literally writing down, sales notes while you're walking through a job site in Buildertrend was really, really cool. Definitely something that I learned a lot from, and hopefully our listeners out there learned a lot too. Yeah, absolutely. A builder's builder, Yeah. Kind of the old school, and not in a bad way, just in a way that, a technology adoption and some of our other guests have talked about, like Courtney, like builders been doing stuff for 30 years. And Tom seems really embrace the changes. And he looks at it more on the people relationship side as the universal thread between like the old and new as we've evolved, but like how technology is kind of like
helping with the efficiency, getting people faster, communicating better. I mean, when he was talking about how he's like updating a to-do and then he's getting a call about it, like he's talking about the innovation within the process, but how the old relationship building, the people business, we've heard people talk about that consistently, and it really came through that I could see why people want to work for Tom or work with Tom and do things, and it's really inspiring because it's always like, what could I be doing better to like have that kind of mindset when I go into my own meetings and do that type of thing. So it was really cool.
And just to your point, to expand on that a little more, just like the embracing the change as well as he had.
Yeah.
That was something if we weren't running up on time, I wanted to talk to him a little bit more about, because even something a little small is like upgrading to the selections feature. I feel like that's something that like a lot of our builders or, contractors across the U.S. in general may be really scared to do.
Yeah.
But all change is good. You have to constantly be evolving, otherwise you're going to get left behind. So to hear him talk about that was cool. And it was also cool that he built Bengal Stadium. And
did you see me? I bet if you looked at on YouTube.
How many games have you been to this year?
This year we went to 2 games. I went to 5 games last year.
Yeah. So Zach, big Cincy fan.
When am I moving to Cincy?
Absolutely.
Don't play this clip to my wife.
I think we're gonna need to talk to him a little bit more about what flaws he may have had in his design that you could sneak into games. And
he didn't answer that part. I was like, how much am I gonna get to meet Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase?
Yeah.
Any listeners out there, maybe it'll come back around.
Yeah, maybe if you see on ESPN some random guy getting caught trying to sneak into Bengal Stadium,
I'm blaming Tom.
Blame Tom.
Tom, thank you so much for coming on. Charlie, thanks for coming in and chatting with us.
Zach, thank you for coming in today. Until next time, I guess. I'm Charlie Burtwhistle.
And I'm Zach Witovich.
We'll see you. Thanks for watching the video. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content brought to you by Buildertrend.